Alright, I've been running the modular cooling unit for a couple of days and I've learned a lot. It's been largely a success, although the few things that I did learn, I very quickly found out that there were going to be some issues with just running the straight propylene glycol tank. Let me back off a little bit so you can see better. So in the last video I did demonstrate and I showed that I had the baffle installed. Before the baffle I wasn't getting very good cooling. The air circulation was limited, surface area in the tank is limited, so air movement in the cabinet was poor. After I put that in, I put a thermocouple down here at the outlet of the baffle where the air sinks and falls to the bottom there, and then I put another one towards the top, and I was getting somewhere around a 15-degree temperature drop across that, and I was really pleased with that. The longer I ran it though, I was having a lot of trouble trying to cool the contents, cool the air temperature of the cabinet below 40. I could get an outlet temperature here about 30 or 32 at times, but I have to maintain that tank between like 5 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit, which just doesn't make sense for refrigeration purposes, to have to drive the evaporator pressure low enough to maintain that low temperature. Plus the frost was getting to be excessive on the tank. So I decided to just go ahead and throw a little computer fan in there, which is back there right now, and blows air across the tank, and it works much better now. I wanted to try to avoid fans, but I will use it until I can eliminate it and find a way to make everything passive. So I've been able to maintain about 34 to 38 degrees in the tank, observed with the temperature logger here, the Zoom box, which I did a little review of last time. It runs for about 20 minutes, and then it's off for about 2 to 2.5 hours, which is not a bad duty cycle. But it does need to be improved a bit. Yesterday it was hot. Today I think it's even hotter outside. It is summer here in the northern hemisphere, or excuse me, the north, and it got to be about 95 degrees in here yesterday, and about the same, if not hotter, today. So when I got home, not only was the computer shut off, I think it overheated, but also the machine had shut off. And it wouldn't start back up. It was overloaded every time it would start. And pretty quickly I realized it was slugging liquid back to the compressor. What happened is, as the temperature inside the shop here rose, because I keep all the doors closed while I'm at work, while the thing was running, the temperature rose, the head pressure would have risen and risen and risen and risen. More and more of the condenser area here would have been used for condensing and not subcooling. So as the pressure rose, more and more of that liquid was pushed out of the condenser and into the evaporator. The evaporator was already charged in such a way that it was returning pretty much saturated vapor, at least to the heat interchanger, and then after that it would superheat it before it went back to the compressor. So much liquid got pushed and migrated into the evaporator that it was slugging liquid back to the compressor. It would go out on overload, it'd cool down, a couple minutes later it'd try again. The only way I could get it to run was to vent some propane out, get some of that charge out, restart the machine, and then recharge it to operating conditions. So I expected the same thing to happen today, and I was right. Let me just go back in time. The computer did shut off again, but I was getting about a 20-minute run time. And here we can see the lag that this thing has. Oh, we're having problems. I'll just continue to see if it'll keep working. I did stop in here this morning about 8 o'clock, and I did add a little charge to it because it was a little dry, but I knew by doing that I was going to have some issues. So it was running great. There's the last run there at about 10 o'clock to about 10:20, 10:25. And then it holds over until about noon, at which point it tries to run, and it fails several times, really beating on this compressor. And all the while you can see that the temperature of everything was on the rise pretty quickly. So right now we're holding the glycol temperature at about 40, about 40 degrees. The air temperature is about 52. And a little glass of water in the bottom is about 45, which means that beer in there is probably about 45. But it's PBR. I don't think it skunks, so it tastes pretty bad to start with. And I'm showing the ambient temperature here a little over 95 degrees, almost 96. So to address this pretty simple operation, I have to add an accumulator. I could add a receiver to the high side, but I don't really see how that's really going to address the issue. It's going to add some more capacity. It's going to be able to use the condenser more surface area for condensing, but when in high ambient conditions, it's still going to push that liquid to the low side. So what I have to do instead is here on the suction line, I have to add a tank with kind of a liquid vapor separator, because I don't want to be sucking liquid back. So I'm going to make a little accumulator tank, and I'm going to also add a tiny little orifice in the bottom of the one tube, in the suction tube, to allow for any small amounts of oil to be sucked back to the compressor. So that's what I'm about to do right now. I'm going to rip this thing apart and get started on that. So we will pause. So here it is, about an hour later. We have what's intended to be an accumulator. So it's pretty ugly, I'll admit, but we got a 1-inch tank there that's just been pinched at the top and the bottom there. The intention here is to have the suction return there in the top, and then it just spits right into the tank, just about right there, and it just spits down in the tank. And then we have a suction tube that runs back to the compressor there, and that actually extends up into the top of the tank, such that liquid would have to fill the entire tank in order for it to suck liquid back. And then this capillary tube here is just for the low side. That was just a convenient place to leave it, because this piece was recovered from the system, so I just reused it and found a way so I didn't have to re-drill and put that cap tube in there. In order to deal with oil return, I did drill a very small hole about in this spot in the tank right there, into the towards the U there, and that should allow any oil that deposits there in the accumulator tank to be drawn back. It will allow some liquid refrigerant to be drawn back if liquid makes it this far, but the size of the hole probably won't admit much, and it'll act kind of like an orifice too, so it'll probably mostly just flash once it goes through there, and that little bit of refrigerant probably won't make much difference. It's not going to slug or anything like that. So alright, okay, accumulator is installed. I pressure tested everything. A slight little leak in a flare there, but I tightened her up. Everything seems to be a-okay. Vacuumed it down, put about 0.8 ounces into the thing and started it up. Wouldn't run. Locked up. Cut out on overload like it has been. Realized that when I was running in vacuum, I didn't cycle the compressor, which I should have done, because I'm only vacuuming on the low side, like just to the compressor shell. But don't think that was the problem. Actually tried to vacuum it down again and cycle it and beat on it a little bit with a hammer, but it will not start. It will draw a couple of amps, but and it's making a little buzz, but I don't know if something broke or it sucked some oil or something up in it, and it's just yeah. So I'm actually kind of glad, because I have another compressor here that I'm going to slap in, and it's very similar footprint and similar hookup, so it shouldn't be too difficult to install it. I have a feeling that compressor is going to be a lot quieter than this one. I think there was something wrong with this compressor. I think the springs or something were bent in it. Maybe there was a valve bent. I don't know, but it rattled and made a lot of noise. But I abused it, so it'll be a fun thing to tear it apart and see maybe what I broke. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So that's going to be the end of the video.